The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.
And we are back. Episode 32, Silly Goose Gang Podcast. And joining us this evening is Michael Jaco. Michael spent 24 years as a Navy SEAL and 11 years in the CIA. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, your time, this evening, our time.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
It's I'm quite excited about this one. I watch a few of your Facebook videos, Michael. So looking forward to see where this one ends up. It's obviously quite a decorated past, Navy SEALs and CIA. So where did it start the military career, Michael? And give us a little background.
All right, excellent. Yeah, I started when I was 18. I came in. I was a hard hat diver for like 2 years. Then I went to the Navy SEAL teams. Went through BUDS training, class 116, and then went into UDT 12. Did SEAL Team 5. Worked with SEAL Team 6. Did combat action at SEAL Team 6. SEAL Team 6 like the creme de la creme of the SEAL teams, and then came back and did like our BUDS training. Started the first hand-to-hand course for the Navy SEAL teams. Was a operations chief at several different commands, so got to see a lot of the world. And then eventually I went started doing contract work for the CIA, traveling all over the world, protecting agents as they collected information, helped track down several terrorists, and one of the big ones, of course, is Osama bin Laden. So really exciting career, good times.
That's pretty cool. So were you directly involved in the bin Laden capture?
I wasn't actually in, when those guys went in and hit those. It was actually my old team that did that, Red Squadron. But I was there in Pakistan. I helped track down bin Laden. One of the women that was tracking on bin Laden. There was a lot of people that were tracking him over the years, and I was involved in a lot of that. But I had this one little intuition. That's kind of what my work is a lot about now, tapping into intuition, remote viewing, all that kind of stuff. So I had this intuition that the doctor that we were working with was going to lead us to bin Laden. She was like, I think I'm going to dump this guy. And I'm like, I think he's going to lead us to bin Laden. And eventually he did. And then my old squadron came in and got him. I was there in Pakistan kind of as a backup to maybe like if there had to be an escape and an evasion where they hit the ground and had to get out of there. So we're kind of like backing them up just in case, something went really bad. Of course, the helo crashed, but they were able to still pull it off, which is, a credit to their professionalism. When things go really bad, they still can pull it off, so it was good.
Yeah, I think because I think, am I right in saying that the Pakistani military had a base like a mile down the road? What, in that circumstance, what are the chances that their military had no idea that he was there?
Yeah, they definitely did. That was their intelligence service. Had a main headquarters just down from where bin Laden left. So my old team was tracking him in Afghanistan, and they know that a helo from Pakistan came in and picked him up and whisked him off into Pakistan. So we had relations with Pakistan. They're supposedly helping us find terrorists, which they weren't. They're just taking the money and acting like they were. In fact, a lot of the terrorists that we used to talk to, would tell us the Pakistani army is like they're horrible. They'll come in and because we'd put pressure on them. Hey, you need to we're giving you billions of dollars every year to find terrorists. What are you guys doing? So they'd roll out, do this big military operation and shell the mountainsides, and they say, oh, we got like 150 terrorists, and of course the terrorists that we were talking to, that were giving us information, were like, that's all bullshit. They're killing villagers. The villagers are like, horribly scared of the Pakistani military when they come in. So it's all a sham. They constantly did that, and after the bin Laden raid, they wanted to actually take our chief of station, and we had to whisk him out of country. So they're not good players. They brought him in. I don't know what they had going on with him. Of course, Pakistan, I think, was one of only two nations that recognized Afghanistan when the Taliban, was in control, where Bin Laden was in control. So it's very interesting to see the way they play games, and so you see right through them after a while.
Yeah, I mean, is that sentiment, is that held within most of the American military and the British military, for that instance? Is that widespread, that thought process that they are just taking the piss essentially?
Oh yeah, definitely. I work. Fortunately, I get to work with a lot of the former, SAS from Australia and also from England, and really, really awesome guys. But yeah, we'd all talk together, and we had the same common, thoughts about them, that they were just playing us, but we saw right through them. We kind of played them back, so.
Yeah, that's that's kind of what you expect, I guess. From those guys. But yeah, it's good to now. When you just because you touched on the like the cave networks when they were dropping bombs on the side of the mountains, we all seen those images. But how intricate were those caves where Bin Laden was hiding or allegedly hiding? How, because they always said he's in these caves and there's no chance of Americans or British getting there because they don't know the system. How is that real? Is that a real thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All the way back into where the Russians were there. So we were helping supply and help to create a lot of those cave systems. So we knew where they were, and so we were able to get in there and track a lot of those things down. And there were certain munitions that we had developed over time that could penetrate deep into those. Once we hit a blast, they would penetrate deep into those and take a lot of people out. So it was and it's that way everywhere. I mean, you see North Korea has underground caves. It's pretty much everywhere. Of course, in America we have underground, bases and so forth. So it's not uncommon for a group, especially a guerrilla group like they were, after we started invading to go underground, literally. So
yeah. I guess to a degree. The ancient Scots did it, hundreds of years ago, hiding in the glens and stuff, and the English would have a real tough, just knowing your own, landscape, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but so what, obviously, was there things that you've seen within your SEAL time in the SEAL, and then working with the CIA, Michael, that led you down to question things, shall we say?
Excellent question. So there's, over time, you start to see, whether in the SEAL teams or in the CIA, you start to see there's like this different organization that's involved. And today we would call them the deep state. But then you're like, who are these guys who are kind of like, working in the background, like super secret? And you're in super secret, organizations and doing. I mean, I did stuff that only a handful of guys knew. So a lot of guys were involved in like super secret programs. You just didn't talk about them. So you'd see stuff going on. You're like, what's that? But eventually, over time, I started to see that these were not good programs that were going on. They weren't involved with us. And we started to isolate and basically keep people that were involved in these programs. If they wanted our help, we wouldn't really go out of our way to help them. But it became pretty obvious over time that there's a separate group that operates. Somehow they've gotten to the point where they have like extra, benefits. They can come in and do whatever they want, and we're supposed to like, back them up and help them and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, these guys are not good. They're doing some cheesy stuff. And then eventually I got to the point, especially in the CIA, where you can see that they're involved in like illegal arms trafficking, which is basically what was happening in Benghazi. So a lot of the guys were trying to like, tell us, hey, there's some stuff going on, but you just can't really talk, because you sign non-disclosure agreements and you can't really talk. That's how they get you, You can't talk about anything you see. But I'll like protect things to my death that are that I've been involved with that are good, But it's up to me, I believe, and those of us that have been involved, and some of us have, started to come forward, and we call us whistleblowers or white hats and so forth, where we come out and basically say, yeah, there's some things that are going on that are not good, and they're not good for not just America, but for the entire world. So you see those things going on. I try to talk about them to the point where I can get away with it, without crossing some lines. But they'll come and spank you. I mean, we've seen a lot of people that speak out, they disappear or suicided and all kind of stuff. It happens all the time. So I've had some of that happen to me when I inadvertently disclosed some programs. So it's a real challenge for us to get this information out and stay alive when we get it out, and also to put it out so that people just don't get just like that's impossible.
Yeah.
Right here, it's impossible that like 9/11 that our government conspired to bring the towers down. It's like, well, I tell them it's like it's not our government. They aren't that smart, but there is a dark organization that works behind the scenes that does that. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy or John F. Kennedy being assassinated is an excellent example. If you get out of the line, you start to talk too much. And he was talking about, secret organizations. He gave that speech, and then, a few days later, he's shot. So they will definitely, there's no one that's untouchable to them. So it's very, you have to be very careful releasing this information.
Yeah, this is one of the things where, just because we've had COVID, and people get, some people that and they come up with these, real elaborate plans that, the government are doing this and that, and you go, I don't know about America because, I'm not there, but, and you go, okay, so I can't see it being the people who are fronting the government. You go, because, listen, these guys can't fill potholes in roads. So how smart can those guys be? So what is going on someplace? Because something, a lot of things, because you said 9/11, just from an outsider looking in, if you do a little bit of digging, you go, something just doesn't add up. This just doesn't. It just seems impossible. So yeah, it's like you're saying, there's shadowy people behind the scenes, because if you look at I don't know which way you vote, Michael, but if you look at Trump or Biden, you go, well, I mean, I wouldn't trust Joe Biden to run me a bath, because he just seems like he wouldn't be capable. You know what I mean? So
no doubt.
Look at that guy and go, I mean, he is not possible running a secret government or a secret space program, or he just wouldn't be capable. It's just impossible. So
you've also got with politicians, the other problem that you always have is the fact that they have term limitations quite often. The States, the president's only ever going to be in for a maximum of 8 years, 2 terms, and then out of a job, how much can they influence in 8 years? Over in the UK, we could have a general election every, 3 or 4 years, or by-elections as and when. So the politicians that are fronting it can't possibly be being as involved as the career bureaucrats, or whatever phrase you want to put alongside them. I take it that's where the real, in inverted commas, power, or the real power kind of lies.
Yeah, so there's larger groups that are involved. I mean, it's you look at the Rothschild banking organization, there would be more of an upper level of involvement, and a lot of the banking system basically is ruled by the Rothschilds. And of course, back during the Napoleonic Wars, where, Battle of Trafalgar, where they thought that Napoleon lost, but they had the Rothschilds had their group come in and basically tell the city of London, hey, the Rothschilds just lost, so stocks went, the British just lost, or the group, just lost against Napoleon. So stocks tanked. They came in and bought low, and then the real news came in that Napoleon had been defeated. So then everybody came in and bought up, and now the Rothschilds basically own everybody. And that's what's been going on for a long time. They have these, dark secret organizations that they can fund with very, very deep pockets. And that's some of the things that I've seen, this deep state do. They have we see Jeffrey Epstein with his pedo island, basically, taking, that's deep state right there. and pretty much all of the deep state intel organizations. So not like MI5 would be the one that's ruling him or controlling him, or the CIA ruling or controlling him, or Mossad ruling or controlling him. It's the deep state within each one of those intel organizations that's controlling that or gathering that information. So it's kind of like, almost all, organizations, I can tell you, intel services basically have ways to gather information, and what, the honeypot type thing. If you've, seen Red Sparrow, it's kind of like, it's the Russians had a program where they would train women to basically seduce men and gather information and dirt on them and stuff like that. That, it's you do that to a French politician, and everybody's like, so what? He's fooling around. They all fool around. So, but if it's a child, it's a different story. So that's what they did with Jeffrey Epstein. They set up all of these politicians, business leaders, Hollywood, you name it, with these horrific acts that they did. And we're finding out that not only do they have sex with minors, but they also have this crazy ritual where they sacrifice children as well. So it's that kind of stuff. Once you get somebody involved in that, and it could be they just come in and they drug them, and then they're involved in this, and then we got you. This is what we want you to do. We want you to be, the British Prime Minister for 4 years, and we're going to have you do this, and this for us. And we'll call you certain times, and then you just do what we tell you. So that's the kind of stuff that they do, and they have been doing for quite some time. So this is being exposed right now. This is the beauty of what's going on with Trump. And Trump is just the front of a white hat organization that exists all over the world that is basically exposing these guys. And I think they've already taken a lot of them out. We see some people like the Prime Minister of Canada, who is obviously under house arrest. You can see the ankle monitor on him and his wife. And he's still locked up in his house. He hasn't even gone to the Prime Minister's residence or anything like that. He's in a separate residence. So he's basically been taken out. So there's a lot of that's going on right now as well.
Yeah. How much do you know about the British establishment with the sort of the paedophiles that were involved in the British sort of government through the 70s and 80s and 90s? Are you aware of that, Michael, with like Cyril Smith, Jimmy Savile, who was infamously, necrophiliac as well as a paedophile and a prolific, for want of a better phrase, rapist and child abuser? And it seems to be, we had that over in Britain 5-6 years ago, I think. Now it all started to come out, and it seems to have slowly almost worked its way across the Atlantic now.
Yeah, it's all over the world. I mean, we're seeing a lot of it being exposed in Australia as well. It seems like America is like the worst, though, by far. They're exposing, of course, in you name it, country, Germany, whatever. They're exposing these dark sites, I guess. The dark internet basically has all this stuff that's been this porno and stuff like that, for child porn and stuff. And some of it's pretty bad. I remember just recently they caught in Australia this group that was basically raping like a baby that's like 3 or 4 months old, and they were videoing it, and they busted them. It was a two-year busted where they were monitoring these guys, and they busted that. So then they trace all of the people that are watching that, and then they bust them as well. So these networks are pretty much going down all over the world because, they've been watching them, and they thought they were getting away with it. They thought they had encrypted information and they could get away with it, but no, it had been busted. Kind of like the if we look back all the way to World War II, the Enigma. Remember that code machine that the Germans and the Japanese had? Yep. So they thought that they had something that was unbreakable, but I believe the NSA and probably British intel deep sources basically had because I can tell you I've worked with a lot of British intel, very, very professional, and all of us were like we're looking around at the time. We're like, there's some crazy stuff going on, there's something's not right, so all of us have been looking at this for a while, and we couldn't really be outspoken about it, would ruin our careers, or we get taken out, or all kind of crazy stuff. So, but I think that now Trump and the white hats all over the world are giving us the ability, the cover to come forward, kind of like digital warriors. So they came out, the Q posts and stuff like that just came out recently about digital warriors. So that's kind of what I am right now, a digital warrior, basically releasing the information, doing the research, doing my intuitive remote viewing type stuff, and seeing this stuff on a different level and helping to expose it. So it's really, really a powerful time right now.
Now, do you think this is why the media, essentially everybody in the media, other than a couple of outlets, go after Trump so hard? And it's, again, from looking over this side of the water, it's like they have thrown everything at Trump, everything at him, and nothing has stuck. All these reports, and they've basically found nothing. And at some point you have to go, why do they hate him like this much? Like, why is it this bad? Because it does seem, you have to look at it and go, oh, wait a minute, there's something again. Just go, something just doesn't seem right. Something seems off here. Why would you go after somebody this bad? And it's always, a lot of celebrities, and from the outside anyway, it looks like a lot of left-leaning politics seem to absolutely despise him. So yeah, it's kind of difficult. Is this why they hate Trump so much? Because he's a guy who's really trying to expose this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. So all the stops are out. There's no more journalism left. It's just just attack Trump and anything that anyone that supports him. So that's they have to, because if they don't stop him out this time. I believe he's already taking people out, and they're going down to Guantanamo. Some of them maybe even have been executed and are in prison. So Guantanamo he basically, when he first came in, Obama had tried to close it down, but wasn't quite able to. So Trump came in and then pumped hundreds of millions of dollars down there to build new barrack systems and stuff like that. So why would you do that? There's really no war going on for the U.S. right now, and the caseload, like for judges, is the highest ever. So who are they judging down there? So it's like the highest ever, like 121 days this year alone. And of course, I guess they take weekends off, but so they've had flights going in. They you can look at flight trackers. They've had incredible amounts of flights going into Guantanamo as well. So obviously people are going down there. I think we can see that some people just seem to be disappearing that were huge, always attacking Trump. And now all you see is like computer generated, images of people. So that people that are really into this information, CGI stuff, can look at it and go, yeah, that's not real. That's all computer generated. And then you have like a tweet or a Facebook post, and it's like, where are these people? Who's doing these posts and stuff. So I think a lot of them are taken out.
Now,
sorry,
I was just going to say. Now, do you think that would Trump drop some of this information before November? Presumably, is he waiting? Do you think for an opportune time? Because we're just about August. Is he now looking for an opportune time to drop this? Because, I don't think anybody's heard from Joe Biden like 6 weeks. Like, he just seems to have disappeared. So do you think he's just looking for a time just to go like a mic drop and walk away? Is that the kind of thing he's looking to do? Do you believe?
I think he's going to. I think it's getting down to the wire. I think the investigations they've been doing. Now I don't know if they're just going to wait until after the elections, or if they're going to explode this on the American consciousness before, because it will be an explosion on the consciousness, because there's a lot of people that are still putting these people on pedestals that once they find out some of this horrific stuff that they've been involved in, they'll come tumbling down. and some of them just will fight till the end. We already know that. I think that the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa terrorist groups pretty much are the jackboots for the new world order, and it seems to be mostly the Democrat run organizations here in America, but of course we're seeing the Black Lives Matter stuff all over the world, and I've seen demonstrations there in England as well. So it's not, and France, and it's not just isolated here. So this organization is pretty much like the Nazi brown shirts. They came in like a couple of years before Hitler came into power, and they basically just started rioting and just threatening people and causing all kind of problems. So that's what they do. They did the same thing in communist Russia. Took out the Tsar. It's the same pattern over and over again, and now we're seeing it in America. So you have to wonder, will America, be able to push back on this and resist? I think that America will, but obviously it's going to be a great challenge because there's a lot of people that are still, in the dark about a lot of this stuff and are kind of hooked, I think, through MK Ultra techniques to brainwash people into believing that the left is, sincere in helping them and sincere in helping Black lives and so forth. So, I mean, just look at Black Lives Matter. Most of the people that are involved with it, over 60%, are all white. So, and they've tracked the donations, and most of the donations go to the Democrat Party for people getting elected. So, it's once people start to become more and more aware of this, and I've seen a lot of people, through my videos and stuff like that. People contact me almost on a daily basis by many numbers and tell me how they've used my videos to basically help awaken people and their families. So it is a movement. I think the digital warriors that like us, like you guys, are like, we are the alternative news right now because, like you said, the media is completely controlled, pretty much 95%, I believe, maybe even more, by the deep state. And they have, I mean, we can see their talking points on every one of the shows. They're all saying the same thing every day. It's like, wow.
It's a crazy time. There's so much information there to process, Michael. There's so much there to process.
Just to double back a little bit, Michael, if that's okay, because you were talking about Guantanamo, and again, I don't know if this is still the case. Does it still sit out with international law? Because I know there was a point where it's not technically Cuba, it's not technically American soil because it's not an embassy, and it kind of sat out with international law, and there was all the uproar around Camp X-Ray and where the terrorists were predominantly taken. Is that still the case?
Yeah, so they can do military tribunals there. So it's outside of the jurisdiction. As we know, the judicial system throughout the world is pretty much corrupted as well. So not only is the media corrupted, but also the judicial system. So Trump has done a lot of work to, take that out. And just for instance, Ghislaine Maxwell, was on the lam here in America for like a year after Jeffrey Epstein. Is like, why isn't she being arrested? So they took down a Manhattan district attorney that was basically, I believe, was holding things up. So Trump told Barr, Attorney General Barr here in America, to basically fire him. And so I guess Barr and this, guy, and that's one of the reasons why Barr is basically, they're trying to impeach our Democrat, party is trying to impeach Barr right now. It's not going to go anywhere because we fortunately have control of the Senate and the conservative side. So Barr basically said, "Hey, we're going to ask you to step down." He's like, "Oh, okay," and then he comes out in the press, says, "I'm not stepping down. They can't make me step down." It's like, what? So Trump said, "Fire him." So they fired him, and that's what the Democrats are all up in uproar about. Same thing. It's like they want to attack Barr because they see him as a threat. They see him as coming after them, which he's going to do, which is what Trump has been doing all along as well. So once he was cleared, within a few days, that's when they arrested Ghislaine Maxwell. And then you might recall that this Wayfair thing, where they're like, look like they're selling children, online. they'd have like a, you know, some kind of cabinet that was normally like, you know, a few $100s, and they were selling it for like, you know, $20,000. And then they just happened to have like, and they named it after a girl that was missing, and they have a picture of the girl. So it's like that came out shortly after Ghislaine was basically taken
arrested.
in. Arrested. So I think she's releasing information, and they're all scared right now. So they're upping the attacks. They're going to up the attacks now. I mean, just imagine, you know, we've seen this throughout time, and like North Vietnam, when we were, you know, in North Vietnam, they did these kinds of attacks all the time, trying to, and that's why there was such big war protests in America. So it's the same thing. Communists were coming in and supporting the anti-war movement, and they were just constantly barraging the media again. And then eventually we pulled out of that, you know, that conflict, which, you know, good or bad, I don't have any say in that, but I have a lot of people that I work with over the years that were involved in that, and they said we could have won that war. You know, they just kept us back. And I feel the same thing about a lot of the wars that we have been involved in for a long time. And a lot of us were like this, same thing. Like we talk about, you know, special forces guys and, you know, the regular military and so forth. We all saw that we could win this war like overnight, you know, almost. Yeah. What are we still doing here? This is ridiculous, you know. So they just keep these things going on and on and on. It's crazy, frustrating.
Talking about the government screwing someone over, just touching on a couple of things that you mentioned, Michael, because you've said you were involved with SEAL Team 6 and you were talking about Vietnam there. Were you at SEAL Team 6 at the same time as Richard Marchenko? Yeah,
he was actually, he wasn't at my board. So you go through a board before you go to SEAL Team 6. So they canvass the teams, and you do a particular board. Now it's a little bit more involved. You have to do physical training, all kind of stuff. But at the time, they looked at your record, they brought you in, they asked you questions. He was the head of SEAL Team 6 at the time. And for me, I was like, I want to be the best of the best, you know. That's just the way it was my whole career, always, you know, striving to, you know, be the best, do the best. But right when I got there, you know, I got to see him, but he was on his way out. Again, they were taking him out because he was basically exposing, I think, some of these bad actors, and they wanted him out because he's being very effective, and they had trumped up charges on him, and then you know, took him out. So, you know, these things happen, you know, over time. You start to observe that kind of stuff, and you're like, what just happened there? And then you start to see patterns over time that there's a lot of manipulation. If someone doesn't play along, then they get taken out, and they find some excuse to take them out. And I just saw in the news today where there's a assistant chief of police in Chicago or something that committed suicide at his desk. It's like, oh, come on, you know?
Yeah. I think he'd just recently been appointed as well, hadn't he?
Yeah, he had just gotten a raise. He made statements that if anyone has, you know, any problems, you know, come forward. We're going to help you out, you know, as far as like, you know, mental problems or whatever. And then he commits suicide. It just doesn't ring right. It doesn't ring true. So that's the kind of stuff that Deep State does. So they have a lot of things that are being exposed in Chicago right now as far as like corruption. So he might have been involved in, you know, an investigation or something, I'm thinking. And you know, he got too close to the sources, so they just took him out. I mean, they've been doing that for a long time, but now we're becoming more aware of it. And
I think
so good.
I really think the Epstein thing, you know, with Epstein committing suicide, I really think that's the one where even people who, you know, would laugh at anybody who you know, thought anything outside, you know, the mainstream. Even people like that were, you know, kind of went, wait, what happened? He was on suicide watch and he killed himself, and there was no the cameras were all switched off, and the guards had fell asleep. And you go, well, hang on a minute. Like I think that's where this goes back to, and I think that, you know, once we're, you know, 5 years, 10 years removed from this, we'll look back and go, that is the thing that set everything off, and it really, you know, I think we will look at that as being something that's so important, because that really made people go, ooh, like this is, you know. And then you start looking back through, the WikiLeaks thing, you go back, you look at the Ben Rich stuff, and you go, wait, what? He was murdered, and they robbed him, but they didn't take his phone or his wallet, and he's the guy who, wait, what? And then, this just becomes a trail where you start, which interestingly, so before this, I had been looking at a few videos that I had watched previously, the Clinton body count, stuff on the secret space program, a few different things that, things that I'd watched, a year ago, 2 years ago. You really can't find them on YouTube. They just don't seem to be there anymore. Like, I used to watch them. I'd watched a lot of them, and now you try and find them. It's like, oh, they just don't seem to be there. So something has obviously changed. Something is happening to hide this stuff, and it's quite frustrating. So, it's clear there's something going on. Whether you want to believe it or not is a different thing, but it's quite clear that there's some kind of movement to hide. I just seen this morning, over here, the video from, I don't even know what the hospital was in America. So there was some nurses and doctors who were saying, we have been using, what's the is it
hydroxychloroquine? Yeah,
that's it. It works, and it had 18 million views and shared, tens and tens of thousands of times.
Mm-hmm.
And YouTube, Facebook, Google have all deleted the video. And you're going, well, why? Why would you delete this video? Like, is it, and then I've seen some other stuff, Prager, PragerU, Dennis Prager, some of his videos, same thing, same idea. They've been deleted. They've blocked their Twitter account. I just seen before we came on here, they'd blocked PragerU, have had their Twitter account locked, and you're going, so something is happening to block anything that's not, the narrative, and it's quite scary. Really quite scary.
It's interesting too that when that happens, then people really want to know. So, I had some of my videos taken off at YouTube, and Trump one time was talking about how you could do UV light, and interesting. Of course, they made fun of him, saying he wanted to have bleach go into people's bodies. It never said anything like that. I looked at it over and over. They even brought it up again at this at Barr's congressional hearing right now, but it's still a lie. So if you keep telling a lie over and over and over again, then people start to believe, well, maybe it's not a lie. It's, they just hear it. They've heard it so many times. They're like, believe it. I believe a lie. So I did the research on the UV light, and they've actually done IVs of UV light into people, and they have they had a biotech company had a UV light that would go down the throat and into the lungs, and just like, you go out into the sunlight, it basically kills germs like within seconds, they're dead, gone. Yeah. So they had a thing that would do that for the lungs. So it's like, oh, wow, that's what he was talking about. He's like, he's informed. So I had the video, I did a YouTube on it, I talked about it, and I had that video. They took that video down, just took it right off. And then, of course, I've disclosed some other things, and they basically shut me down on YouTube for 3 months. So yeah, if you disclose too much, they're going to have a waste, because they're supposed to be an open source of information. That's what they were given by the U.S. government. Okay, you're going to be an open source of information. We're going to give you all these benefits. You'll be able to build your business huge. A lot of people have a platform to communicate and stuff like that. But now they've been coming in to restrict, and that's completely against the things that they agreed to in the beginning. So they're another control system for the deep state. So now they're having hearings this week for those companies, Google, Facebook, and Twitter, which have been suppressing information, and they were never giving the ability to do that, but they've been doing it on their own. So they're going to get hammered, I think.
Yeah. Did they give a reason, Michael, when they took your stuff down and banned you for 3 months? Did you receive any notification about the why that happened, or did they just kind of just
Yeah,
bang you and leave it at that.
it's the same thing. In that one of the videos that I released, I like I'm gonna take a step over this line and see what happens. And sure enough, so I will not repeat that here. So I took that little tiny step over that line and revealed something. And then the next day, that video was gone, and I was suppressed for 3 months. And they said it was, abused community standards. They can say whatever they want, So, but it was legitimate. It was just I revealed something that was like way over for what and I thought that maybe because I've seen some other people releasing something close, I was like, well, maybe I can get away with it. But yeah, they shut me down.
Did you almost plan it as like a recon mission then to test it in a way to say, if I release this and they do take it down, that shows that they are paying attention.
Ali, very good. Yeah, I like the way you said that. It was definitely a recon mission. So I do those often, in different ways, obviously, testing, information here and there, dropping little something here or there, maybe a little piece of something. So I've gotten a little bit better at it now. So I do my videos now on Twitch, which is more open to you pretty much do whatever you want on it to a certain extent. Of course, I'm sure if I went over some line, they would probably stop me out. But I have a little bit more freedom on Twitch. That's what's happening right now. Other platforms are coming up, Parlor's opening up instead of Twitter. So I have a Parlor account now. I'm starting to build that out. So all these different accounts, it's just like a special forces guy. If I see the enemy strong in one spot, I'm gonna go around and hit them from the side or the back or whatever. And that's kind of what I'm doing with my information.
I noticed Tim Kennedy's just moved on to Parlor as well. I noticed him on his Instagram. Tim Kennedy was talking about that they'd even started shutting down. He was putting up pictures of just his weapons, as obviously a Green Beret sniper and special forces guy out in the States, and he was putting up pictures of weapons. And they were just getting continually taken down under community guidelines. And he said he's now moved all of his weapons stuff. He basically leaves his MMA and business sheepdog response, I believe, on Instagram, and everything else is on Parlor because he said it was getting shut down. Literally within minutes of posting, it would be, and just pictures of a weapon sat on a desk, not shooting at someone or encouraging someone to shoot. It was just, this is my setup for my, insert, we're Scottish, we don't know about weapons, but insert name of gun here is appropriate. And it was getting ripped down almost straight away. And I noticed Kennedy had put up the other day that he had moved on to Parlor for similar reasons.
But
exactly.
Weirdly, kids can play Call of Duty.
I know, exactly.
It's crazy.
Good point.
So yeah, the freedom of speech thing is now that without a doubt is, you see it all the time from the political left. Now I would say, and I know for a fact Ali as well, is we're quite central. I'm probably slightly right of centre in terms of political beliefs, but we can all agree on the same things, But it seems to be that the left or the far left want to shut down all conversation that they don't agree with. Whereas I would say, to an extent, if you're, everybody should be able to speak, unless if you're a, doesn't matter who you are, if you're an Islamic fundamentalist and you're spouting death to all Westerners, or you're a legitimate Nazi, or you name the group, MS-13. Yeah, we should probably tell these guys to shut the fuck up and not allow them to speak, because nobody wants to see that. But it's where it gets weird is who is deciding what is allowed to be said. That's when it becomes weird, because like I say, unless it's extreme on any side, it doesn't matter which side it's on. Everybody can agree on certain things, but it's who is deciding, and that's what seems to be weird at the minute. It seems to be, almost an extreme left who want to. I know in Scotland, Ali, I don't know if you've actually read this. yourself, but they're trying to suppress the freedom of speech in Scotland at the minute, and it's quite, when you actually read it, it's quite scary. They're trying to limit any sort of criticism of the government in Scotland, and it's like, well,
that's class as a hate crime over here, Michael. If you criticise the government, you can now potentially, if it passes, be charged as a hate crime for saying I disagree with government policy, which is surely that should really be a fundamental pillarstone of a democracy. You should be able to say the government are doing a bad job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's throughout time. So when you see that kind of suppression coming in, then we're getting closer to this Nazi world government type thing. So that's and whoever's helping support that. You just take a look at them and go, okay, now we know who the deep state is. And you can see that, across the board everywhere, people that support that kind of stuff. We look at COVID now. We know that COVID is just basically, a bad cold, bad flu, bad case of the flu. People die from the flu every year. This is a little bit worse. Bioengineered in a lab in Wuhan that came from probably a lab in America that was transported to Canada where it was escaped, and then the doctor, the bioengineer that was going to talk about, they were going to question him. He dies in Africa, suicided. So it's so they're that's why they play this game. So now we have this COVID thing that's around the world. We have the masks. The masks are proven scientifically to be ineffective. In the beginning, it's deep state when they say one thing and then change it and then change it again and have another thing. It's just all over the place to confuse people. So the mask is it's one of their control mechanisms. And if you look at COVID, if you look at Ovid, that's Latin for sheep. If you look at 19 they're huge in numerology. So when they do something, on Earth Day is when they had the explosion in the Gulf where that one oil well blew up and it just leaked all that oil into the Gulf. Is on Earth Day. So they like to play with days and numbers. So 1 and 9, 1 in spirituality is a beginning and 9 is an ending. So the two are basically a surrender. So if you have 19, it's a surrender. So see, sheep, surrender. So it's like they're in our face, literally, with their games, where they play with us, where they make us do things, and people just go along with it, So we can see how they control, us. We can see how they mind control us by thinking that, this COVID is just over the top. Here in America, they're exposing that people have gone to get a COVID test. And they get in the line. They're like, I'm not going to do it, but they've already registered for it. So then they get, they get called and say, oh, you tested positive for COVID. It's like, I never even got the test. So we have a lot of that going on. And we also have a lot of people that are dying for car wrecks or falling off a mountain or you name it. They're dying of COVID. They have a heart attack, COVID. That's being exposed. And then they take deaths from many, many days, and then they multiply and they put them together and multiply and say, look, the death rate is skyrocketing, but those were deaths from all over for many, many days. That's been exposed, but they don't change it. They still leave it there. So it's a manipulation of consciousness that goes on constantly, that if you don't look deeper, if you don't do critical thinking on your own, you're not going to see all of this stuff.
I just want to go back a little bit there, Michael. Did you say that COVID was engineered in America and shipped to Canada?
Yes. So that's a trace, and I put that out many months ago. I trace it all. I remote viewed it in coming out of Wuhan. I said it was a bio weapon long before anybody said it, and then it started being exposed. So that's one of the things that can happen with people that, have a little bit higher, abilities, like myself, and a lot of people that I'm working with, are tapping into the stuff too. Remote viewing is very popular. So truths are not suppressed to you anymore. So you can look at stuff as a remote viewer and start to see, the truth for things. And when I have multiple people do remote view on something, and we're all getting the same thing, even though I'm not telling them what I'm seeing. We're just like at the end, it's like, okay, what do you see? What do you see? And everybody's saying the same thing. Just like I did a remote view just recently with my group, had like 1,000 people that have done it now, and we're almost all of us are seeing on the dark side of the moon a base, and then inside of the moon is hollow, and there's a base with extraterrestrials in it and everything. So, this extraterrestrials thing is also another big lie that they suppress, for us as well. Even though, like, they had a press conference, I think it was back in 2001 or 2002, where a lot of military professionals, generals, all kinds of, people that were involved in all kinds of programs, talked about how they had seen and had witnessed, extraterrestrial life and flying machines, all kind of crazy stuff. And now it's even coming out now where they're, revealing the UFO stuff. So this is another thing that they have suppressed for a long time. Now, the thing that really destroyed my life for a while was that I basically exposed a UFO program that the CIA had. And that's one of those dark programs where if you expose their stuff, they have pretty much carte blanche to like destroy you and even assassinate you. So they actually did try to take me out on several occasions. Fortunately, I was able to evade it and not get taken out. But they will, they will come after you. So it's interesting. So the UFO thing is.
The UFO thing is something that fascinates me. So, there's certain things where I think, most recently the Commander David Fravor stuff, the Go Fast video. What was there was another one. There was 3 kind of videos. The gimbal video, sorry. Those 3 were, especially the Commander Fravor one, where you look at that video and you go, I don't even know how we can deny this now. So if you look at, if somebody doesn't believe in any of this stuff, here you go. So if somebody hears you saying, this guy saying, there's bases on the moon and all this kind of stuff, that all sounds far too crazy for me. If you don't believe in Area 51 or you don't believe in any of this stuff, if you look at the David Fravor video, you just go, well, this shit is not on Earth. I mean, these are the best pilots in the world saying, we have never seen anything like this. And you can hear I think it's a gimbal video or the Go Fast video, where you can hear the pilots going, and it's not an ancient alien video. It's not some guy in Alabama, saying, I was abducted. And these are the best of the best saying, what the fuck is this thing? That's when you have to go, okay, that's like that, that's the UFO version of Jeffrey Epstein getting, committing suicide. That's the version of that where you go, well, wait a minute. If you don't believe in any of this, watch this and explain it. How do you explain this? So it's the UFO thing is something that I went deep into a while ago, Michael, ages ago, looking at stuff. You get kind of obsessed with the whole thing, and it's there's some real wild stuff out there. All about the supposed alien war at Dulce, New Mexico, and all this kind of stuff. But if you just look at the David Fravor video, it's like, well, this is like, how do we explain? And then obviously the Pentagon have now said, yeah, this is real. So now it's like, holy shit, what else is real?
I was going to say, Michael, do you think they've released that information to try and get people's attention away from elsewhere? A kind of, like a little bit of a magician's trick, like, don't look at the left hand, look at the right hand and see what that's doing to draw people's attention away? Or do you just think it's a symptom of it all starting to crumble?
It's all starting to crumble, and they're purposefully releasing it. I think it's piecemeal. It should be a lot faster. But, I think there's some consciousness, for people, it's going to be, too fast to wake up. You somebody's sleeping hard and you like give them a little nice easy shake, or you like throw water on them, and it's like, like you don't want to throw water on them. So we're like, okay, let's do a little piecemeal, and then we'll give them something bigger and bigger and more and more and more. So that's pretty much what's been happening for the last couple of decades, I believe. A little piecemeal here and there, it's kind of like the pedophilia stuff. You know, it's been a little bit here and there, and now it's starting to pick up speed. So we're going to see more and more of it. So we for me, I had a lot of people that kept contacting me for pretty much the last couple of decades, where they were like, "Do you know that you're involved in the Super Soldier program?" And I was like, "What?" And on a certain level, I was like, "Yes, but I don't want to go there," you know. So it started to really come out in the last 5 to 6 years, and that really happened when I kind of exposed something that was happening at Area 51 with Grays, and the way that we had like a looking glass. There's a looking glass that we can look at. Okay, good. You guys heard about it. So looking glass, I was involved in that program. So someone disclosed it, and I validated them, and that's when my life got destroyed. So I didn't even know that. It was like, yeah, that guy's real. You know, I know him from this organization, and they were trying to discredit him at the time. So we're not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole because that'll get us all in trouble. But still, unfortunately, at some point, like we're talking about, all this stuff's going to be revealed. So it's no sweat to like get a little bit here and there. But for me, I had like so many people kept contacting me. I was like, what is going on? I was like, am I being set up? And I was like, but on a certain level, I was like, yeah, I've had these thoughts come through, So I, over time, more and more, things started to come through. You know that one thing in Men in Black where they come in and do the light thing, and everybody's like, oh, we didn't see anything, they have a way, and I don't think it's something that simple, but they have a way of, taking our consciousness, those of us that are involved in those programs, and basically wiping us. But as you get older, like I am getting older, you start to tap into, I think maybe it's an Akashic record type thing where you actually go in and start to get these memories back, because they can wipe us on this level, on the spiritual consciousness level, but it's on a different plane as well. So as you get older and you start to have more experiences and you start to open to more of these spiritual experiences and understand that things happen on a much greater level, kind of like my remote viewing and remote influence and stuff that I do, it opens up other avenues. So I started having memories coming in of the secret space program. And so I've been kind of like revealing a little bit of that over time. So bases on a base on the moon, that's like nothing. We have bases on every single planet and many of the moons. We have people that live inside of every single planet, every one of them in our solar system. And we're involved with extraterrestrials by the thousands. So imagine everybody got that in one big dump. It'd blow everybody's circuits, So it's got to come a little bit at a time.
This reminds me of, quite a lot of the earlier John Lear stuff. Where he was talking about this stuff. He said a long time ago, that there was, we've been to every planet. And one of the things that was interesting, because his dad was obviously behind the Learjet, and he had some involvement on the moon landings, 1969. We can get into that later on, actually. But and he said, one thing that nobody ever talks about now is anti-gravity. People should be really excited about anti-gravity because it's comic book stuff. He goes, well, he was saying, with no proof, of course, but he was saying, my dad worked on the program in the 50s for anti-gravity, because that's why we can get to all these planets. So it's something that's always been fascinating to me. I have always been fascinated with the stars and UFOs since I was little, as long as I can remember. So it's something that's always, and it's one of those things where it's always seemed, even to me, I like it. I really, really want it to be true. It's a little hard to believe, but now, things that, just by the Pentagon saying, yeah, we have some stuff, you're like, whoa, this shit might actually be real. So yeah, I know. I think the first time that I'd even heard of the secret space program was Gary McKinnon. Are you aware of Gary McKinnon?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Has he like disappeared off the? He's like gone, isn't he? Or is he still around?
I think he's still around, but I
Okay.
think he was. I think he was like a little bit. He was maybe a little autistic or something.
Yeah, I think it was Asperger's he had
Asperger's,
officially.
something
Was the
like
one that
that.
was
Yeah,
typically
yeah.
released in the UK press.
But yeah, he you know, I believe that would be the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, "Oh yeah, I found this thing. There's like a secret space program. There's ranks within the secret space program, all this kind of stuff." And it was like, "Whoa, what?" Um, and going back to sort of the John Lear stuff, he was saying that. Now I remember, I forget the name. Was it? I think it was one of what was the Apollo mission that blew up on takeoff? He was saying there was some connection there because there was space. I think they had 3 astronauts officially, but there was room for a 4th. So when that blew up, the secret guys came in to remove another body because that couldn't possibly be there, and that was all to do with the secret space program. Which even though I was really into it and enjoying it, it was, even to me, it was like, this seems a little bit crazy, but I quite like it. It's quite fun. But yeah, so Gary McKinnon was the guy who first kind of made us aware of what this thing was.
That's one of the first ones that I remember too. And that was kind of the same way. I was like, that's stretching a little bit, maybe, but over time it's like, something that because everybody kept hitting me up on it, and I was like, no. And I did like this. I did an interview with a woman that was involved in it, and she was like, do you have any memories? And I was like, no. So people have been constantly trying to, spark my memories because they know that I was involved with it somehow. I was like, wow, no. And then recently I've had just to make sure, because I'm into past lifetimes and stuff like that. So I had a woman that's totally into working with people that are in this program. And she's helped, I wouldn't say regress them, but basically take them in a deep meditation so that they can access these memories. So that's what she did with me. And boy, the information that came through was like over the top. And as it's coming through, you're conscious of it. It's like a different part of me that's talking, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like, this is unbelievable and so deep, so it's not, I couldn't come up with this stuff. I'm not that creative, and I've always looked at this stuff very skeptically. And then for this stuff to start to come through, I'm like, I got to face this, this is another thing, because all the stuff that I started doing, the remote viewing and the remote influencing, I'm a very analytical guy, I'm very scientific oriented. And when it started to come through, I was like, ooh, whoa, But as you get comfortable with it, and then you start to open to it, you realize that, everyone has these abilities. It's just, we've been kind of programmed pretty much our whole lives to think that we're not more than what we really are. So
talking programming there, Michael, how much of that then is involved with your remote viewing around neuro-linguistic programming in NLP? Does that form part of that, or is that separate to?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the neuro-linguistic programming, which is fascinating work, and the thing that I was a cornerstone when I taught the first hand-to-hand program for the SEAL teams, is you had to overcome people's fear. You had to overcome their limitations. And that's what the SEAL program was all about, overcoming limitations, learning that you can overcome them. Of course, not many people can do that. We have a 80 to 90% washout rate in our training. So those that can, really accept that, I can do this, I can go further. And that's kind of what I did, right from the beginning. Once I discovered that I could overcome things, I just had to relax and go through it. That same relaxation and moving into this different frame of consciousness is what you do with NLP. So neuro being the brain wave, the neurons in the brain, linguistics, the words, and programming. So you're basically programming your mind to reach a different level of consciousness. And that's what the remote viewing and the hand-to-hand program, where I could send a whole room full of people on, like I did it, of course, but I would train other people. We'd send 25 people attacking one person. They were able to take the whole room down and kill everyone, killing strikes and stuff like that. And then those guys would like come back to life after they've been killed after a couple of seconds and then attack again. So over a 3-minute span, they would like, basically control and manipulate and kill, because that's what we're doing, kill strikes, 300 people. So the normal person was like, that's impossible, but it is. It's completely possible when you reach these different levels of consciousness. I could see guys when they clicked, and the guys that clicked went on to do absolutely amazing things. The guys that didn't were still stuck in fear. They got a little bit of it and did something with it, but nothing like the guys that really clicked. So that's what I learned how to teach people to go into this neuron programming, linguistically programming there with positive, words. Yeah. So fear obviously is a negative. It keeps our consciousness low. That's what the deep state does. They are always trying to keep us in fear, and that's what COVID does. Obviously, they're always trying to keep us in fear, keep our consciousness low, so that we don't realize that we are capable of unbelievably amazing, impossible things. So that's what I taught those guys, and that is what helped me to go to the level eventually where I was able to remote view. And it was pretty simple for me at first. All I did, I went to Apache spiritual training in a remote location in the wilderness of New Jersey, believe it or not. It's the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. A guy taught it there. So it was basically just to send your consciousness down a trail at first to see what you saw on the trail, even though you'd never been down it. So I had like amazing results with that. I could see, what was on the trail. And I was like, wow, this stuff works. So I started doing it on the bike path where I used to ride to go to work. I would see bikers before they came. And then I started doing it like, with cops, have the radar detector, guns. I could see them up ahead, way up ahead, like the time and distance thing starts to go away with remote viewing. So then I started doing it in combat zones. So before my teams went out on the road, I would remote view the roads, like, oh, can't go out there right now, guys. And they're like, what? And then there'd be like a big boom, because within the time frame we were going to be out there. And the same thing just happened again and again. And then I got to the point where I could see a couple days and a week in advance. And I told guys detail, what was going to happen. So that's all, just learning how to program your mind right. It's really quite simple. And Einstein said, imagination is the greatest gift to humankind. So once you understand your imagination is very powerful, it's not like a little kid thing, It's very powerful. And once you start to realize that and program your mind correctly, you can do these amazing things.
It's interesting because we use NLP at work. Not any level that you obviously go into there, Michael, but that's where, having read your book, I was interested in the NLP side of it. So it's interesting that you've used that. But Chris, on you go, mate. Sorry, jumping in.
No, I was just going to say, the remote viewing thing is one of the things where when I first fell down some sort of UFO rabbit holes, people were talking about remote viewing the moon and all these planets and all this kind of stuff, and it seems a little bit like, get the fuck out of here, man. That seems insane. But I think it has been like kind of proven that the CIA and everybody did play around about 100% played around about these programs. Certainly in the 60s, and then kind of went, they don't work, and then left it. But of course, you would say that. But I think it's like the MK Ultra stuff. In terms of, just like what's his name, Charles Manson. That was all, they were all connected to that program. So, if you look at, at the time, you would say that's crazy. But now, once, years go by, so, Charles Manson, was definitely, they were giving him acid and all this kind of shit. And now, I think I'm pretty sure it's out there that the CIA and, NASA and all these people were playing around with remote viewing. So it's one of those things where, again, you kind of go, oh. Now it's hard. It's extremely hard for like me or Ali to kind of understand it, I suppose, because we don't do it and we never will be able to do it. But how does it? Is it just channeling your mind? Are you just is that essentially what it is? But is it some people can do it, some people can't do it? Is that?
Yeah, it's pretty simple at first. What you do, like I was explaining, you just maybe it's something that someone will put, and this is what I teach the people that do my courses. Basically, you have someone take like items or something and place them in a different room, or maybe it's a friend that you have that's across town, and they like take some items and put it on their desk, and you know where the desk is or whatever. So then you like remote view it. You imagine your consciousness going out and looking at that desk, you know, that has the items on it, and then, you know, colors or shapes or, you know, certain whatever comes to you, and it's pretty consistent. People can do this, and they do it over and over again. And then once you do that, it's like working a muscle. You just constantly do it over and over again, and then eventually it gets to the point where you can do more and more things, like go look at other planets, or, you know, go and look into the past, or go and look into the future, and so forth. So I do that all the time. I look into the future, like COVID. Before it like took off, I said it's going to be a pandemic. These are going to be the numbers of deaths and, you know, infection rates. And I was like, to the day, I was getting it almost within, you know, certain figures. I was saying the stock market's going to crash at this point. You know, so you start to see all these different things, and it's extremely helpful. So, I mean, just like, for instance, I saw that crypto currency was going to, like, you know, take off and go to the moon. And, you know, I said that a while back. So a lot of people got into it. I got into it, obviously, because I didn't, for the longest time, I thought crypto was going to go to zero. And then I'm watching it, and then something changed. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I was like, oh, it's going to go back up. So I had that intuition that it's going to go back up. And then when I have a feeling about something, then I will remote view it. I will look at it closer, deeper, and I'll ask questions, you know, as I remote view something. So I got the cryptocurrency is going to, like, take off. And so the things that I invested in have doubled and tripled. And looks like even like the last several days, crypto is like on a tear. So it's definitely looking like it's going to take up. So the U.S. dollar is collapsing. So there's going to be, I believe, in the future, cryptocurrency, and it makes sense. It's going to be a digital thing. You don't have to have money, you know, like we know. So your digital phone, you can transfer money. We're already doing that now with our bank account. So the cryptocurrency will be in the future, I believe, very, very strongly. And a lot of people that are, and then I started looking at, so I never even looked at it. And then I started looking at people that are pretty savvy, and they're saying look at cryptocurrency like the microwave oven back when the microwave oven first came out. So it's going to, like, you know, it's going to go to the moon. So everybody's going to have one. Of course, not everybody has them now. I got rid of my microwave oven a long time ago because, you know, I don't think the microwaves are good for your food. But, you know, it's something that I think is going to take off. So that's what you do with remote viewing. You know, I did it for combat, and I was like, what else can I do with it? And I did it. I looked at, well, if I can go up the timeline, can I go back on the timeline? So I did it, you know, looking at past lifetimes, and then I, you know, do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. I look at stuff that they're putting out, you know, about COVID, and I look at it and I'm like, no, that's a manipulation. So I've been harping for months and months and months now that this COVID is a big lie, it's a manipulation, and so forth. And you know, it's still very frustrating to see people are still falling for it.
Yeah, you know, the whole thing seems a little crazy. Yeah, just everything seems off. The whole thing seems a little off. You know, being told to, you know what, you know, over here especially, you know, they're saying, you know, it's all about our health, but, you know, McDonald's has been open for 2 months and the gyms still aren't open. So you go, okay, so it's not about health, because that doesn't make any sense. Like, surely any idiot could see that this isn't about your health, because why would you open fucking McDonald's? Nobody's saying, you know, just the other day, and there was you know, I shared it on Facebook. Ali would have seen it. You know, you know, I think it's something like obesity increases your chance of dying, you know, from COVID by 90%. And you go, okay, so open the gyms and shut McDonald's. Like this, this doesn't feel like it's a hard fix. So it's not about your health. It doesn't even make sense. It's not even logical. Yeah, so, you know, the whole thing seems a little off. This just seems silly.
Yeah, in New Jersey here, they had a guy that was opening his gym, and the New Jersey governor is like, hammering this one guy, trying to make an example of being a real tyrant, And so he sent the sheriff out after him. After they've been open for I think all the way for about 3 months, and they've had 12 or 13,000 people visit their gym, and there's not one person. It's documented evidence. Not one person has gotten sick coming to their gym, and the health department even recognized it. But still, the health department says that you're in violation. You're a big risk. It's like, what are you thinking about? So then this governor was part of this group. A lot of Northeast governors here in the United States that are Democrat leftists have put a lot of seniors in nursing homes that were infected. The seniors were infected, and they had huge numbers of over half the death rate is from seniors from these nursing homes in New York, New Jersey, I think Massachusetts, maybe another state, Michigan, I think, and California. And it's all because these guys, wanted to up those numbers. And I think eventually they're going to be held accountable, but still the tyranny, goes on. And it's crazy. All of us are against tyranny, but here we are, we're living it.
Yeah, they did exactly the same thing over here, Michael. There's been documented evidence again, both in England and Scotland, where older people, 65 plus, senior citizens, whatever phrase you want to put alongside it, were being released from hospital with positive tests or no test having been completed but suspected, and were being released back to the care homes, where they were then, because of the lockdown situation, you've got an enclosed environment of everyone's over 65, everyone's got some kind of health condition, and it just ravaged it like wildfire, absolutely ravaged it. And there was some care homes with 90% plus mortality rates, because once it got into the care home, no one was allowed to come in, no one was allowed to leave. There was stories about the staff were staying on site for weeks, just essentially on duty continually. They weren't even leaving because people were dying at such a rate. And it was either suspected COVID or confirmed COVID, and they were saying just go back to the care home; it's the best place for them, rather than an actual hospital. And it was ravaging it. And they think in Scotland, I saw some figures where they were saying potentially up to 60 to 70% of the COVID death figure was directly from or related to care home deaths, and that's where the figures are massively inflated because of that.
Yeah. Oh wow, I didn't know it was that bad over there too. So it's not just here in the States. It's a lot of countries are doing the same thing, trying to up these numbers. Wow, that's very frustrating.
Yeah, they definitely did it. Definitely did it over here. Definitely did it in the UK.
Where do you see this thing ended up, Michael? Do you see some kind of conflict with China on the cards? Is that something that you see as being a possibility? Because there seems to be a lot of tension building up between everybody essentially in China. Is that something that you see happening, or another Cold War, or is it going to be a real conflict? Or
I see that the deep state is going to collapse. So it's going to take it several years to do a mop up and clean up, just like any major war, especially since this is a world war. But I think they're going to collapse. The deep state in China, I think the premier of China, I think he's actually a good guy, and but that doesn't mean that everybody is good. Just like here in America, you see pretty much the Democrat Party and some Republicans. I'm not going to pick on any particular party, but it definitely seems like the Democrat Party as a whole are extremely leftist and are supporting this negativity and want to go communist. They're these extreme things that they want to do are basically communism. So China, communist country, they embrace, basically, trading with the world and stuff like that. So much of the world gets money from or not money, but goods from China. I think 15% of the world's goods come from China. Some places probably get even more. So they're a communist, capitalist type of country, but the extreme controls that they have over their people is the thing that we don't want to see anywhere. So that's the problem. The Chinese elite, just like we saw in Russia before the Russia collapse, the elite basically are all doing extremely well, when the people don't do so well at all and are suppressed. Their consciousness is suppressed. They don't have freedom of anything there, So they go to work, and that's about it, So I think that this Three Gorges Dam, if that collapses, that's pretty much going to destroy China. So there could be some things that are going on to help that along. Obviously it'll be horrific for a lot of people downstream from that if it does collapse, because the Chinese, just like the Russians with Chernobyl, aren't going to admit that they have something that's failing, because it makes them look bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the you can look at on YouTube. There's videos of satellite images of the dam, and you go, dams shouldn't move. They shouldn't change shape. I had watched a video, and they said, I believe they started to build it in 1994, and then they didn't really know what they were doing, so they got the video said Western experts, so American, UK, Australia, Canada, whatever, experts to look, and they said this is not good enough, and they built it anyway. So I think they were talking about 400 million people in the vicinity that would be in serious trouble, and then the crops and all this kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, I don't know how you fix something like that. I don't know how. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know how you would fix it. I don't know what would happen. I don't know. I don't know if there will be some country will give it a little nudge to hope that they break it, so they can, bring China to its knees. I don't know how that plays out.
Yeah, when I remote viewed it, it was I saw cracks on the left side, and then incidentally all that information started coming out, and it showed that big bow on the left side. So it's interesting to see that. I think it's going to collapse. So can I influence that? I don't think so. I think it's something that's coming, and that's might be divine type thing, because like you said, if it does collapse, then China's gone. The Chinese Communist Party, which I predicted 6 or 7 months ago, would collapse within a year. So maybe this is the point, where this dam collapse would destroy China, the Communist Party. Yeah. We see, all the people that have died in the nursing homes. You would think that would be an unbelievable, trigger point for people to really rise up against, these governments or these governors or mayors or whoever's, fomenting this. But there hasn't been. It's like it's just baffling to me that people are allowing this to continue. So,
yeah,
what will trigger it? Go ahead.
I've got friends that are, over here in Scotland. There's the Scottish National Party that kind of their main thing is Scottish independence, and I've got friends that are very, very involved in that whole movement. And I've seen multiple posts of praising the Scottish First Minister and her approach to dealing with COVID, completely ignoring the fact that she okayed the exact same procedure of sending old age pensioners back to their care homes. And there was a lot, just as COVID was kicking off in Britain and we were considering a lockdown, the UK government have what are known as Cobra meetings, where it's like all the senior politicians and heads of the military and etc. all get together. And Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, was infamously, I suppose, absent for 6 of the original meetings. But what very few people ever mention is Nicola Sturgeon also missed 5 of them. She wasn't interested and wasn't involved. So then you think, well, the First Minister of Scotland and the Prime Minister of the whole of the UK weren't attending these meetings, and now they've decided to go down this route. It does raise questions of, were they asleep at the wheel? Are they that incompetent? Or is something else involved here?
Yeah, we see a lot of people that are involved in these, like Joe Biden and Boris Johnson and so forth. They just don't seem the same people. I mean, literally. So what I'm into is I know that there's they have a cloning program where they can take DNA and basically clone someone very quickly now. So it's been something that goes all the way back to the 40s and 30s, I believe, where they had cloning. And they have pictures of it and so forth. So there's been a lot of disclosure on that. I think a lot of the movies that we see, kind of and shows and stuff, are kind of like disclosing a little bit of this information, kind of like preparing, the consciousness of people, like we've been talking about. So I think that, I looked at Boris Johnson recently. I was like, God, this doesn't look like him at all. And same thing with Joe Biden. You can even look at just the simple thing of the earlobe. The old Biden's earlobe was not attached, and the new Biden's earlobe is attached. So he looks a lot younger than the old Biden. And that's what happens with a cloning program. Your clone will come out looking, better in the beginning, but over time it starts to deteriorate mentally, like we're seeing. We saw the same thing with Hillary Clinton. She had like episodes where she like just would freak out on the lights, and just say stuff that didn't make sense, kind of like Joe Biden does, So you start to look at this stuff and you're like, maybe this cloning stuff is real, So, but where's the real Joe Biden? Where's the real Hillary Clinton? Where's the real Boris Johnson? Did they take them out? What's going on?
Some of the things, it's funny because I'd been speaking to one of my friends earlier on, and I was saying to him about Joe Biden, and I was saying, if this is the best, now I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying that that Trump is a super genius and he's the best possible candidate for the Republicans, but if Joe Biden is the best that the Democrats can come up with in a country of 350 million, then the party is fucked, because he is. It's this video, the video where he's talking about God, and then halfway through his sentence, he forgets. Gary goes, that guy. And it's like, what? And it's like if it wasn't, if he wasn't running for, president, it would be hilarious. But he is, and it's not. It's terrible. You go, if that doesn't raise questions on its own, I've listened to, I've said this before on, on this podcast. I've listened to Tulsi Gabbard talking, and she seems like a real reasonable woman. Good points, she's a military girl, and she seems like a real reasonable person that you could say she could run the country. And then it's like, no, we're going to go with Joe Biden, who looks like every time he smiles like somebody's electrocuting him, forgets what he's talking about, and then just comes out with fucking ridiculous, absolutely outrageous stuff. And everybody on CNN is going, "Yep, I don't see any red flags." He goes, "What?"
Exactly.
This guy's fucking insane.
You've said it before as well, Chris, on this podcast, that because there was a chat about the Democrats trying to get away from the old white man politics, and now they've picked the oldest, whitest guy out there in Joe Biden to run as the Democrat. It's bizarre. It doesn't make sense.
It's crazy.
Yeah, the same thing with Bernie Sanders. They must have paid him off again, so he kind of like dropped off. But yeah, the Kobe came out and basically, shut them all down. He's been in his basement for like months, because he's like scared to come out because it's a threat. What's he going to do when he gets elected? Is he going to stay in his basement and run the country from his basement? It just doesn't make sense that people would support a guy like that.
Yeah, the whole thing seems just completely bonkers. For example, I don't know if you know this, Michael, but the guy who was elected to be the leader of the opposition in the UK, what's his name, Ali? Sir Keir Starmer. Yeah, so he's the guy that Labour elected to be the leader of the party, the leader of the opposition. He's the guy who investigated Jimmy Savile when he was still alive and went, "Yep, I don't see anything wrong here." He is now the leader of the opposition, and you go, whoa, hang on a minute, like, is nobody slightly concerned? Do you know that? If you look at it, you go, all of the people in this party, and this is the guy, and he looked at Jimmy Savile, he was the guy that overseen investigations into him when they were, I believe he was still alive.
Well, yeah, it was when he was alive, and then went
Yeah.
into Operation Tree as well.
Yeah, he was still alive, and he went, "Oh yeah, I don't see any issue. I don't see why we should investigate him." What the fuck?
Yeah,
And then,
he famously.
and then he dies, and he becomes one of the worst paedophiles and rapists in history. You went, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know it was. Again, possibly misquoting it, but Keir Starmer there was something I had read where Sabo had access to a hospital, Michael, called Stoke Mandeville, which was quite a famous hospital in the UK, and it was where he had unlimited access to the morgue. And you have to ask yourself a question: why would someone want access to the morgue? If you're not a doctor, you're not a pathologist, and it was because he was, as well as being a paedophile, and he was a necrophiliac. And Keir Starmer didn't think there was an issue that someone had unlimited access to the morgue. It was signed off. So Sabo has access to the morgue. Yeah. Okay, that seems okay. That seems reasonable.
So when you look at the bigger picture, like, these guys are deep state, they're controlled, they protect each other, they they control the judicial system, the political system, pretty much. That's they can just like blow it off, and the rest of us are like, what? And but that's the key, to see the bigger picture of this stuff, to see that there's a operational system behind the scenes that's far more intricate and far more, destructive and just dark, that we really need to take this system down. And that's the problem. That's the great, awakening process that we need to go through. And until we do, then these guys continue to like do this kind of stuff. I think that there's going to be another round of COVID, something much more deadly coming in. So unless we can really stop that out somehow, it's going to really ravage. And they want to do it in the U.S. obviously because of the election. So that's the more they can keep America like suppressed and locked down and stuff like that, the worse it looks for Trump. And that's their goal, to have these riots going on in the big cities. I've told people to get out of the big cities because they're going to just like really start to cook off here soon. Yeah. And it's crazy.
Do you think it'll be like they'll be bioengineering it then to make it more virulent?
Oh yeah. It'll definitely be more virulent. So I believe that's one of the reasons why Trump has basically shut down the U.S. Even the school systems, the universities were trying to get their college students back from overseas, and he's even trying to shut that down, trying to shut down immigration, cut back the immigration numbers, just everything. Because I think they know that they're going to try and put some more stuff in here. So we'll see if they get away with it. If they do, it's going to be tragic.
Do you think that bringing down the deep state depends on Trump being re-elected? If he doesn't get in and Biden gets in, do you think this all gets swept under the table and business as usual?
Yeah, he'll definitely. It all gets swept under the table if Biden gets in there. They'll probably just slowly turn us into a new world order, a Nazi state throughout the world. And what that does really, like we right now, definitely the three of us and many others throughout the world, we have a soul conscious state that's connected. Now, what they want to do with their bioengineered and manipulated vaccines and stuff is basically disconnect us from our soul level and just basically use our bodies and our consciousness as slaves. So that's the thing that they're trying to move towards. It's a bigger picture, and it's kind of hard to grasp for some people that aren't at least aware that there's manipulation going on. So that level is where they want to take us, take over our consciousness, pretty much.
Now, Michael, would you think then? Do you think Trump running, 2016? Do you think he's been kind of pushed into that position exactly for this? Do you think there's good factions within the government who say this is a guy who, he is crazy enough to really go after this? Do you think he's been pushed in there?
Oh, definitely. I think they approached him I feel this extremely strongly, having with my military background and in the intelligence community, that he was approached and basically told that they would protect him. He would be the head of their organization, worldwide organization, kind of like the white hats that we've heard about, and that they would come forward and start to take down elements of the deep state, and then into the next election cycle, which I believe he will win, then they'll further it and basically complete it. So yes, he's definitely been done. I mean, if you look at how he used to travel when he first came in, he traveled to Saudi Arabia. Now, no one other than the kings and the royal family hold the sword. So you remember he went to Saudi Arabia, he was doing a sword dance, and I was like, oh my God, he must have like told them that they're all pedophiles or something. And then there was a big sweep of the government. You know, the young prince came in and basically took over. So that was basically the first thing of the pedophile, you know, taking down the pedophile system. Basically let them know, hey, we know, and this is what's going to happen, and we're basically in charge now. And they're like, okay, yeah. So then he went to the Vatican, and you look at the Pope. The Pope was like, they take pictures of him with the Pope, and the Pope's like all depressed looking, and Trump's like got this big smile standing next to him. So he basically told the Pope the same thing. Yeah, we have all the pedophilia stuff you guys have been up to for all this time, and we're basically you're done. So then he went to Jerusalem, and remember they had been trying to get the State Department, you know, the embassy in Jerusalem for like decades and decades, and he got it there. So and I think it's the same thing. He's basically going to all these different countries. Went to EU, and you might remember Brexit was having a problem. So he goes to the EU, basically probably did the same thing, you know, disclosed to them that we got all the dirt on you guys. And they had the picture of him like standing in front of all the European leaders. I was like, whoa, that's something. And so it's that same thing. Went to Japan. They did, I mean, it's on and on and on. So he's basically, they had the NSA, I believe, basically it's the National Security Organization basically has it was a new military intel organization that was started many years ago, and I think that is the one that basically has really gotten the real dirt on these guys and broke like we talked about in the beginning, the Enigma code that they had, where they thought they were talking to each other and super secret, but we busted them.
Now this kind of goes back to you know, the Wayfair stuff and kind of Chrissy Teigen. You know, people are saying this is too obvious. You know, and I'd listened to some people saying, yeah, but that's exactly what, you know, these people are like. They're so brazen. You know, there was a video of Chrissy Teigen, and you know, she's married to John Legend, and they were saying, you know, what's the, you know, the wildest sexual experience that you guys have had. And John Legend goes quiet, and Chrissy Teigen says, "Oh, the Obama thing," and he instantly goes, "I wasn't at the White House." And then it's like, well, what Obama thing were you at where there was a wild sex thing going on? And then you instantly kind of go, and then you know, it was a video, I can't remember the name of it. It was a couple of American guys and saying, but this is how outrageous they are. They think that they are in a system that will never collapse. And now, you know, Chrissy Teigen, she had that weekend where she had a meltdown, you know, and there's people have screenshotted tweets, and you go, wait a minute, and then there's all these like pizza emojis, and then she's deleted 60,000 and then 60,000 tweets, and then she said, you know, oh, I've been hacked for the last 11 years. You know, even though there's video of her talking about her Twitter account, and you go, what? Something's wrong. Like something has went seriously wrong with her. She has went, fuck. Like,
oh yeah.
And, do you know what I mean? It's like something.
Well, she and John Legend were on the Lolita Express pedophile island, so they probably have video of them doing some horrible things there. So we'll see a lot of these people, you know, start to disappear like they have been, and I think eventually they'll probably release the confessions that they have made, probably down in Guantanamo. Because that's the only place where they can try him. Because like we talked about earlier, if they try to try him here, then the judicial system, which is extremely corrupt and basically takes forever, you know, for them to prosecute someone, as we're seeing, with the basically FBI and some of the CIA stuff like that's been leaked, as far as like trying to take Trump down. They were spying on him, so we're starting to see all that stuff now, and that's going to be revealed, I believe, in the future. I don't think it's going to be revealed until after election. So once they solidify, there's probably going to be a huge demonstration, by the leftist. They're still brainwashed into believing that their side is good, and we'll see how far that goes down the rabbit hole. I don't see a civil war. I think it's going to be more isolated to like some of these big cities where they have because a lot of the big cities here in America are just bastions of leftist ideology, all the way into their universities. They've been in charge of some of these cities that are just rotten to the core. Like for Detroit, at one time, I think they've had like a Democrat that's been running Detroit for like 60 or something years, something crazy. And Detroit's
Chicago's
like
about the same, isn't it? Chicago's about 45 years or so, just because
45,
I'm a big
50
Chicago
years.
Bears fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I follow a lot of Chicago news because of the Chicago Bears, but I know they're similar.
Yep, exactly.
It was similar with once the video of the George Floyd thing. We've said this before in the podcast. It was outrageous. George Floyd was murdered, but instantly all Antifa went out and they were blaming Trump and blaming the Republicans and all this kind of stuff, and you go, well, and then you actually dig into it and you go, okay, but this has been a Democratic run state for a long time, so how is this a Trump issue? So once you actually dig into it, you kind of go, okay, so it's just all seems, and I think obviously the media do their part in blowing the whole thing up out of proportion. But yeah, I mean, I knew people so way back in 2016 who were as it was in America, it was the same thing here. Everybody saying, Hillary Clinton's going to win by a landslide. They don't like Donald Trump, blah, blah, But then I knew people who had been in America on holiday from all different parts, people that had been in, all over. And when you actually spoke to them, they went, no, that's not the case at all. It's not even necessarily that people liked Trump at that point. They just despised Hillary Clinton so badly that they would have voted for anybody else. So we were getting, these mixed signals. I've said this to a friend earlier on as well, Michael. So when the BBC were reporting on Brexit, they would never ever leave London to talk about Brexit. So they the biggest, most multicultural city in Europe, they were like, let's talk to people here about Brexit. Do you think Brexit should happen? No, I don't. And then, there was a couple of MPs who were getting questioned by the BBC, why don't you go outside London? Because they didn't want to go outside London. They wanted it to look like this was a sure gone thing, and it wasn't. So the same, the media have this massive part to play in all these problems. The bias is insane. The BBC used to be one of the most well-respected news organizations, and now, to me, it's just a joke. I mean, an absolute joke of an organization. CNN are the same. I mean, they get caught out lying so many times. It's like, how this is like a comedy show. Like, it's we've all seen the videos of Don Lemon, and I seen him arguing just the other day with Terry Crews, and it's like it's so, they're so ridiculous, the presenters. It's like genuinely it could be like on Comedy Central. It's just like it's so obvious that they're real biased. I don't even know how you solve it. It seems like it's such an enormous problem that how does this thing get fixed? How do you fix this?
I think that's a good point. And Chris, that's a good point about Brexit, because I think that was the wave. So you guys started the wave in Britain, and then it made it to America, and that's when Trump was elected. So it's something that's it started to go around the world. I believe more and more people are seeing, the manipulation and the control and stuff like that in the media. The media has got to be changed. That's the thing. I think that's the one thing that's really, holding this consciousness movement up. So if we can start to take over the media, and I don't know what that's going to entail, how that happens, but at some point, somehow, the media has to change. And you're right, CNN. I remember watching CNN as a little kid, and I was like, CNN's going to be great someday. And then when I was in the Panama invasion with SEAL Team 6, we would turn on the TV and look at CNN to get intel, because they were like, that's good. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So for years and years and years, you could go into like offices within special forces, like the CO's office, the captain's office, or the intel office, and they'd have a TV monitor going with CNN news on it. And then that changed, and the same thing with the BBC. I remember going overseas and like you tuned in. I mean, I was totally into the BBC, all their stuff. I was subscribed to everything BBC. I loved it, but you could see, like you're saying, the shifts start to happen. You're like, I'm not going to listen to this bullshit anymore. It's like, wow, it's sad,
Yeah, I remember my dad telling me that about CNN. My dad was in the Royal Navy for 22 years, 75 to or through the 90s. And I remember him saying that every bridge on every Royal Naval ship he'd ever been on had a radio or a TV tuned into the BBC or the BBC World Service, and another one tuned into CNN, because it was the best intelligence sources going. And that was right through, my dad served out in the Gulf, Falklands, all through that kind of time. And it was the same. It was always the same situation. And then suddenly the mid-90s, maybe early 2000s, started to change. And the BBC seemed to change round about sort of the tail end of New Labour, really, over our neck of the woods.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, it was the BBC who reported that Tower 7 had collapsed whilst it was still standing. And that was the point where you go, wait a minute.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's when you kind of went, oh, something's not right.
Somebody's reading their script a little early.
Yeah, like this building.
Or the time zone's wrong.
This building that wasn't hit by anything has just collapsed whilst it's still standing over the shoulder. You go, no, it's not. Why would that building have collapsed? Nothing hit it. Oh, look, it just collapsed.
Yeah, I watched that happen. I happened to be home. Basically, I was working at the Naval Academy at the time, a senior enlisted guy, and I just happened to be home watching my daughter. And I watched that happen. I'm like, man, somehow terrorists got in there and planted explosives, because I'm a demolition expert. And then I was like, but how could that happen? How could terrorists get in there and not be noticed? And then you started to hear, when you did the critical research thing, you started to hear like firefighters talking about, hearing explosions going off in the building after, the fire, and they were like, we're going to get this fire under control. So they thought they had it in the bag, because they had fires. I looked at information from many years ago where the buildings were built to withstand several impacts from aircraft, not just one. So, and you remember that one scene where the aircraft hits and all that fuel just like flies out?
Yep.
What was burning the building and melting the building down then? So a lot of anomalies, in that. And the more I did the research and I saw other experts come forward, like they had the engineers for truth, they had the firefighters for truth. I mean, they had the law enforcement for truth, they had the nurses doctors for truth. I mean, just everybody started coming out. But same thing, like you're talking about, all those videos and all that stuff has been suppressed over time.
Now, what was the because I've never ever asked anybody this, because it's a lot of the military guys, it would be kind of a sore point. Now, what was the general feeling in the military, for 9/11? Is it more they just don't think about it, or do they believe that planes hit the as it was reported, or is there some skepticism? How is it viewed within the military?
It took time. I mean, a lot of us, were because I had predicted something was coming. I could feel it, and I was at the Naval Academy at the time, and there was a brief that we had in early August, and I said, I'm Navy SEAL. I've been all over the world, and I really feel that we need to beef up security here at the Naval Academy because I've been looking at it, and it seems a little lax. I think we're coming into a time frame where, I got a feeling, that things really are going to get out of hand, and so they beefed up the security of the Naval Academy, and I think they came out with a sheet at some point of targets and different targets all over the country, and the Naval Academy actually ended up on that list. And I was like, so I felt like I did a pretty good thing, beefing up security there. So when it happened, at first you get caught up in the craziness of it. Like, oh, we're gonna go, take care of whoever did this, and then they're like, okay, it was bin Laden, in the caves, and then eventually over time, those of us that started doing the research and looking at stuff were like, but in the beginning, everybody was on board with it. There's still a lot of people that are. I mean, we are talking about this right now, and some people are gonna look at this, oh, those guys are crazy, that was terrorists who did that, but if you really, like I said, do the research on that. I mean, I went by the Pentagon after it happened, and I'm like, there's no way a plane hit there. And then you start looking at all the information on it, and if a plane with wings had hit the Pentagon, it would have caused damage where the wings are, but there was no damage at all on the side of the building. And it was as I remember when it first happened, I'm like, wow, looks like somebody did the same thing with the tower. Somebody put explosives in there. That's the first thing that came to my mind as a demolition expert. So, and then there's like, no, a plane hit it. And I'm like, that's bullshit. There's no plane hit that. And then it came up like parts, and the parts did not match the plane that they said it came from. It matched the engine from a cruise missile. So I'm like, okay. And then you saw they only had one video. So here's the most probably videoed, building in the world. One of the most video, but they only have one little clip. I'm like, that's another bad thing. And then they had this explosion, and I'm like, if that was a plane that hit there, there'd be a lot bigger explosion than that. So there's the reason why it hit there is they were doing an investigation on the deep state. In that one building right there.
Because what was his name now? Who announced the day before that it was like $3 trillion missing? It was like
exactly. Donald Rumsfeld. Yep.
Donald Rumsfeld, that's the guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the thing that got me with the whole thing, when I was 16 when that happened. I remember, what was the plane that was shot down over over a field? There was a plane that was shot down over a field. And I can remember there was live footage from there. And I can remember being young. And I remember saying to my dad, where's the plane? There's no plane.
Yeah, good point.
Because every other time you've ever seen, even since then, if you think about, the Malaysian Airlines flight that was shot down over Ukraine. There's been another few that have been shot down. The Iranians shot one down as well recently. And there's videos of the wreckage, and you see a wing, a nose piece, some parts of fuselage. But for 9/11, it was like, where is the? You're saying that you shot it down because it was going to. I believe the White House, they were saying it was going to. That's what that was the intended target. But you would. This is the field where this was. Where is the plane?
Yeah. And also there were supposedly people on the flight that called with their cell phone saying that they were basically going to go up and take out the guys that had basically taken over the plane. Well, there's no cell phone coverage from a plane at that altitude at that time, and there was no Today you can have like they have like a basically antenna that gives you cell phone coverage and stuff like that. They didn't have that on that plane, so a lot of these things when you start to look at them don't match. The same thing with the passport. They found the passport of one of the hijackers, outside the building. It's okay, so it came out of an exploding plane with all these flames through a building and landed just perfectly, no burn marks, no nothing, just right there. And
well, there was
I used to talk to my friends in the special forces, and I tell them this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, that's bullshit. If that's true, then I'm never going to believe in our government again." And then I showed it to them. They're like, "Oh."
There was a couple of occasions
you have, because that's part of the mind control that they do. They build up these ideas that if you're not with us, you're against us type thing. That's saying that. And
there was a couple of instances. Ali, you might remember this from. I think one of them was the Bataclan massacre in France.
Oh, in Paris.
Yeah. And there was a couple of instances. The guy who exploded a suicide vest outside of the Stade de France. Remember, there was a game of football on at the time, and you had an explosion inside it. Yeah, they found that guy's passport, and you're going, wait, what? What is it with passports? Why did terrorists carry their passports everywhere? Like, I mean, if that doesn't make you go,
yeah,
I have some questions. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you go, why have they always? And there was another one. It was a guy who
photo ID when you're going to perform a crime.
It was a guy who I believe they got him in Belgium.
Yes.
And there was a shootout, and the Belgian authorities shot him and killed him, and he had his passport on him. What? Why would you? Unless I'm going on holiday, I don't have my passport on me ever. It's just one of those things where it's like, why does this keep happening? This is a little weird. I mean, even if you look at any conspiracy theory, if you want to call it a conspiracy theory, if you look at anything and go, nah, you must look at the patterns and go, okay, so they found a passport of Mohammed Atta, I believe that's who it was. They found his passport after the plane exploded and melted the metal to such an extent that the world's tallest building, both world's tallest buildings collapsed. But they found his passport, and then these other terrorists in France, well, those guys just so happen to have their passport, and you go, okay, something doesn't seem right. This just doesn't seem like this would be a normal thing. So yeah, it's one of those things where you do have to go, okay, I have some questions.
And then where do you go with them? Because a lot of us had those questions, and we're like, how there's. And then you have the guys who are like, there's no way that a government, like we talked about, there's no way the government could do this. And then you go through that process. And then you're like, for me, you start to see these things or these people or this organization, this very dark organization behind the scenes that's manipulating things. And you're like, oh, my God. I mean, for instance, I would be in, we're talking about the manipulation of the press. I would be in cars and while people were talking in the back, and I'll just say it like that, and they were telling people what they were going to write in the press overseas, and I'm like, oh my God, that's how they keep these people dumbed down. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, they don't do that in the States. There's no way.
Yeah.
And then I started to look, and then I see the Operation Mockingbird, which the CIA basically admitted to, where they, control the media in the United States as well. I'm like, oh my God. And then I started to look at the way, like we're seeing right now, the way the media is manipulated. So it has an effect on consciousness. People get their information, from the media, and they believe in it. I had a friend, a SEAL team friend. We were at Bud's, I think, doing instructing and stuff at the time. And a really good friend of mine, I'd worked with him for many years. Knew his wife and everything. And so there was the invasion where we went into Somalia to bring all the food to the starving Africans and stuff like that. And then I turned into a goat rope and a horrible situation. But anyway, when when they first went in, the way we SEALs do it, we come in, we survey the beach, come back, we build a chart, then we go back in, and then we do some more work, and then, we're back out. So the Marines came in to basically set up. It was like a Marine recon unit came in to set up on the beach, and the press comes in, and they're like videoing these guys, and it didn't look good. They didn't look very professional. So that comes out in the press in San Diego. Of course, San Diego is where we have one of our bases there in Coronado. And so we look like, a bunch of knuckleheads. And so his wife is like, what happened with you guys? They look like idiots. And he's like, oh, honey, we contacted those guys out there, and we asked them about that, and they said that wasn't us, that was Marine Recon. She's like, no, it wasn't. The paper said it was you guys. And he's like, no, it was. I'm just telling you what it was, honey. But she never would believe him. Not a surprise he ended up divorcing her, but it's amazing. You can actually, in your family, someone that because she's obviously seen him, over the years do his thing. I think at the time they've been together for like well over 10 years. So all that period of time, seeing her husband working the SEAL teams, know the professionalism that we have, and then to be, believe the press over him. It's like insane. That's the way people are, It's so blows mine.
Did you say that was the Marine Recon that was involved in that, Michael?
Yeah, when they did pictures of it. So,
only because I remember that happening, and I would have sworn down it was the SEALs for the exact same reason. I remember it happening and saying the SEALs blunder in Somalia, and it was the BBC and the CNN and stuff were covering it like, here's the Navy SEALs on their top secret, and the cameras are already set up on the beach. I would have sworn down right up until now, if I was challenged on pain of death, that it was the SEALs that were involved in that.
See, so there you go. So it's crazy, right?
But yeah, I would have sworn down because I remember it, because I remember my dad talking about it and going, oh, bloody Navy SEALs all flashing, no idea with their tridents and fucking Yanks thinking they're coming in and saving the world, and a little bit of interforce rivalry between the British and the US, and it turns out it was the Marines the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the same thing, we just you see something, you see it's unprofessional, and it's like you don't have any say, even those of us in Navy SEALs. Well, can you retract that? No. Like, okay, but they do that all the time. And so, for instance, I don't know if you guys remember, probably do. You guys seem to be pretty tapped in. You remember the Navy SEAL recently that was like, had to go. They were holding him for crimes against Iraqi, Yeah. So we all got behind him. We being the guys, that are retired, and we have a little bit of pull. So we started to go and back up Eddie Gallagher. So we were like, hey, this is a bunch of BS. And I even knew one of the officers that was responsible for having him, locked down in confinement like that, solitary confinement. I knew he wasn't a good officer. So all of us started to talk out. We had people coming in trying to like disrupt us, but we were like, calling them out, stopping them out, and like, no, this is the way it's going to be. This is complete BS. Eventually that got to Trump, and he got aware of that, and he came in and basically said, release him from solitary confinement so he can like at least talk to his lawyer and, get a good meal and work out or whatever. And so that kept escalating, and I even predicted. I said to the group, I said, you know what? I bet you, we got the remote viewing ability. I bet you that the Secretary of Defense and the head of the SEAL community, they're both of them are deep state, and I bet you both of them are going to get taken out. And sure enough, they did. So even in the most prestigious organizations, we're starting to see this infiltration of this deep state element, and it goes pretty deep. I mean, we could go really far down the rabbit hole, even more than we've already gone, which is pretty deep already. So you guys are very informed, so very nice.
What on that topic, what's your line in the sand, Michael? What's the where do you get to with any of this stuff before you go, no, that's crazy, that's too much? What is it? Is there something, because there's certain things. Like I say, I used to like watching Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. And the first series was very good, and then it got to the stage where it was like, this is absolutely fucking bonkers. This is just nonsense now. They're just making a show. So what's the line in the sand for you where you go, nope, it's just too much?
It's. I mean, like as far as what? I mean, there's many. I have many lines in the sand on a lot of different things. So what you mean as far as like what I will accept before I like speak out, or what I look at and go, nah, that's bullshit.
What's too much? What's what's the thing the conspiracy thing that you find insane, that you think that's to believe in that you would have to be mad? Where's the line for that?
Well, what I do is I like, for my background, I just like analytically look at stuff, initially. And if I feel it doesn't feel right. I had this one SEAL commander that was really, I looked up to a lot. And he was from Tennessee, and he had this, this accent, this Southern accent. He says, "That dog don't bark," And I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of, I look at something and I go, "That dog don't bark," so I can see, like we're talking about, almost everything that comes out of the media about, is pretty much dog don't bark on that. But some of the stuff where, like recently they did the blast off. They took a couple of those guys from that SpaceX. They did the blast off, and so they showed video of that blast off, and then they came out. Somebody came out with like a video where they showed a mouse running, in the picture. And I'm like, I don't. The same thing. That does. I don't know where you're going with that conspiracy stuff, but I truly believe they walked on the moon, but maybe they did some video somewhere. So that's the kind. Yeah. So there are things that I look at. I don't like totally accept everything. I look at stuff critically from my background, and I have this if I have a feeling about something, it doesn't really, that dog doesn't bark, then I'm like, okay, I look at it a little closer, maybe do some critical research or something, or even remote view it. And I do that for a lot of stuff these days.
So what I was thinking was, there's certain people who believe in, there's certain people who believe the Earth's flat and they believe that space is fake. Like, that's the kind of stuff. Like, is that the kind of people that you look at and go, you guys are fucking mental?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, you get in a airplane and you travel and you can see the curvature of the world, and I've seen it on ships out at sea, this curvature, so it's like, come on guys, it's not flat, it's obvious it's round, or just obloid, spheroid, or whatever you want to call it, but it's not, flat. So, but if you want to believe that, that's cool. And maybe some people look at me and go, "Oh, if you want to believe that the government is involved in 9/11, dropping you're like a flat earther." I'm like, all right, whatever. So some things I look at and it's obvious to me. Other people, they're just like, that's stupid. But there are stupid things out there. Absolutely.
Yeah. The flat earth thing, the bit that gets me most about flat earth is, why? Do you know what I mean? Like everything else, you think, okay, 9/11 was an inside job because they wanted to start the war on terror. There's a kind of theory around that you might be able to follow.
Mm-hmm.
The Earth's flat. Okay. Like,
why would it be?
Where does it go from there? It's just the Earth's flat. They don't want us to know it's round. They don't want us to know it's a globe. Well, why? Because they don't. Oh, okay. It just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, are these people paid to try and do disinfo? It's like, because there are people that do that, but I just look at it and go, okay. So, I mean, they seem to have, I've looked at their stuff that they believe in, and it's, if we look at, maps and stuff like that, and it just doesn't, rhyme right. And I'm like, well, that could be for different reasons, but not because it's flat. It doesn't make sense, So it's just not logical. I don't think.
It doesn't make any sense. So I think we're cracking on with time now, but I want to finish up with some moon stuff, if that's okay with you, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you are saying that you believe that there's bases on the moon.
Yeah.
Now, has there ever been any missions where they have these pictures, you believe, where NASA's taken, because I think there's been loads of stuff about, what's possibly been taken and, pictures being missing and film footage, mysteriously disappearing because NASA apparently doesn't keep it all. And, do you believe that there's ever been any footage of that stuff? Or is it,
Yeah, I think they, I think they they wanted that to go off perfect, So like the one spacecraft that burned up, that was a black eye for them. So they wanted to make sure that everything goes perfect in case something went bad. Then they had video that everything looked okay, And I've been part of stuff like that, so I can verify that stuff does go on. So that's a possibility. Maybe they wanted to do like a shot where they had they're doing the little moon buggy type thing, and it rolled over or something, and it was on video. They didn't want to do that live, so they had like a little time delay, and they're like they have video of them. And this is speculation of them doing that, and they have like a moonshot studio somewhere. So that's a possibility, because I've seen some stuff. There's like, yeah, I can see what you're talking about. They're probably that video is probably not real from the moon, but I firmly believe that they did go there.
Yeah. Now, what would be interesting is, did they stop going? And if they did stop going, why did they stop going? Because when somebody says that all of a sudden we just America just stopped going to the moon, and I don't do you think they still go in some is there a way to still get there, or if we're assuming that the secret space program is real, so do you believe that there's still missions there regularly, or?
Oh yeah, there's definitely missions still there, and through, like I said, through the other planets too. Now, the reason why that I can analytically and critically see that as being a possibility is because being involved in the SEAL teams at a very high level and in CIA at a very high level, I got to see some stuff that was super advanced. The only reason why we saw that stealth helo, that the SEAL Team 6 did the mission on, is because it crashed. So that stuff is out there, way more advanced than that. I can promise you. So I've seen it. It's been involved in it. So
I remember listening to somebody now, and I can't remember who it was. It was somebody in the military, and they basically said, "We're 50 years more advanced than what you think we are."
Absolutely. At least, probably more, actually.
It was Clint Emerson on this.
Oh yeah, Clint. Yeah, good.
Clint spoke about it working with the NSA and said, take anything you see in a movie, multiply it by about 1 million, and you're getting close. And talking about being 30 or 40 years ahead of time. He spoke about it on this as well.
Yeah, Clint's a good man. He was part of. He worked with us in the SEAL Team hand program that we developed. So good man, very good man.
Spoke to Clint. One of the other things that was a fascinating thing was Ben Rich from the Skunk Works. In his retirement speech, he said, we now have the technology to take ET home, and then that was it. Just kind of left, and it was like, what does he mean? So yes, all the other stuff is interesting, but it's space and UFOs and the moon and the stars that I find real fascinating. Really, really fun, because
well, you can even look back in time. You look at the Mahabharata, and they have what looks like nuclear warfare going on back there. And in India, they've actually found villages where they have like the green glass that they had at the Los Alamos in New Mexico when they did the first test. I guess the sand turned to green glass. So they've actually found villages in India where the Mahabharata, which is supposedly like thousands of years old, where they have villages that have very high radiation levels, and the villagers are like, the same thing where in Hiroshima, where they would find like a person like was bent over or whatever, and they would come in and like they would touch them and they're just like gone, just and just turned to ash. So they were unearthing stuff like that, ceramics that were exposed to like unbelievably high level, like 10,000 degrees, whatever it is, that happens in a nuclear blast. So they, that seems to, we've probably been advanced on the Earth over time. We've probably been very advanced, and then we lost that technology because we like beat ourselves back to the Stone Age. So it's a possibility, and that's even.
Do you give any credence to the Roswell stuff? Is that something do you believe in that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think
there's actually programs where they come into crash sites. There's people that have been involved in it talk about it. It's all over the place. Many people where they come in and do crash sites.
I believe you know this better than me, Michael. I believe that the guys who went to, because the Roswell wreckage was put on two different planes, and I believe it was the teams who were involved in dropping the nuclear or the atom bombs in Japan that were involved. And that was the thing where they said, these guys don't mistake weather balloons. They were guys who were involved at the top level of dropping things that were never been dropped before. So these guys are not idiots. They know what they're looking at, and those guys are saying, "What the is this?" So yeah, I get all geeky and when it comes to talking about UFOs. I get so.
Well, I even think that the Germans back all the way back to World War II were like they got contacted and they were given high tech information, and they went to Antarctica and they built bases there. There's all kinds of stuff that validates all of this information too.
Yeah, the thing
that went down there.
Admiral Byrd.
That's
the thing that's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Admiral Byrd. They took a huge fleet, like three different fleets down there to like fight them or something, and they got their asses handed to them, so they like limped away. So it's
one of those things where why would America send a massive fleet down to after a major war to fight why are they going? Why did they take military planes? And allegedly they had lost planes, they'd lost men, and all sorts of stuff, and then just kind of left in a hurry. So something happened.
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder as well with that why have the British been so keen to keep a hold of the Falklands? I know I mentioned it earlier, but Falklands is very, very close to that neck of the world, and it's an awful long way from Britain. And we spent an awful lot of money back in '82 to send a task force down there to keep that protected.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask you about that because your father was involved in that. That's cool that you're tapped into that. But I believe that's true as well. That's why they did that.
Yeah. It makes sense.
And some of those people have even some of those guys who were involved in that talked about some very mysterious things, like alien contact during the war and all kind of crazy stuff. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, there's loads of that. I mean, there was things along the same lines. In Korea, a lot of strange military sightings. Of like, what is this? Unexplained things. It's one of those things. Again, like the ancient aliens things, where you speak to so many. I've listened to so many videos and watched so many things where you go, this guy's out of his mind. This is crazy. But then you do listen to the guys, and you go, oh, when Commander Fravor says things, and Bob Lazar now has been kind of proven to be right.
Yeah.
Okay, this makes sense. But there's so many, there's so many things out there that people who are.
And those guys do incredible research too. I mean, they find records that back that stuff up, and you're like, when you make these claims and you have the like validation from the records, it's like, okay, there could be something here. So I'll go down this road a little bit, and then you see other people talk about it. And it's like, wow, this seems to be real, So it's cool.
That's one of the things that I would say with any of this stuff, whether you call it conspiracy theory or not, whatever label you want to put on it, there has to be something there for me to even look at it. There has to be something there, because it, like the flat Earth, or flat Earth people saying that satellites are fake. You go, like how do you come up with this? Like, that doesn't even make sense. So there has to be something, So when you look at 9/11, when you look at the Epstein thing, you go, okay, there's something there. Maybe I'm wrong. But there's something there that just doesn't fit. Things just don't fit properly. That a lot of these things don't fit. But some of them obviously are crazy. The flat Earth thing and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, with most of the topics we've covered, whether people think it's crazy and we're all mad, you can't deny that there's something in all of it. There's something there. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. There's something there. There's little bits where you go, like a little piece of fabric that you have to kind of pull and go, what is this? Let me, So yeah, it's been like, what is that, like 2.5 hours, Ali?
Running towards 2.5 hours, man. Yeah. We've and I still think we've barely scratched the surface.
Oh yeah,
barely scratched the surface. There's a lot there still to talk about.
It's flown by. I don't know for you, Michael, but it's certainly flown by for myself and Chris. It's been a great conversation.
Oh yeah, I've really enjoyed it. You guys are really tapped into a lot of good stuff. So I think your audience is really going to dig this one. It's going to be really good. And thanks a lot for having me on. I mean, it's been super good conversation.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good fun. I'm pretty sure there's a million things that we could still talk about. I'm just trying to think now. Some of the crazier stuff that seems outrageous is there's multiple reports of American military encountering giants and all this kind of stuff in Afghanistan. There's loads of that kind of stuff. That's a little bit like I don't know, but
right.
Maybe we can save this stuff for another day. Maybe we can save this stuff for another day. But yeah, there's it's been real cool. Like you say, 2.5 hours. It's been fun. So yeah.
Just before we wrap up fully there, Michael, just if anyone wants to find out more about yourself, your work, your intuitive warrior, where can they find you on the social media? And we'll pop this into the notes as well. Make sure people get the right info.
Yeah, I'm on Unleashing Intuition, basically on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. That's pretty much either Michael Jaco or Unleashing Intuition. And then I have unleashing-intuition1.teachable.com. That's where I have all my courses and stuff like that. But yeah, my books are on Amazon, so you can find my books on Amazon too. So it's a lot of information out there. It's been a lot of fun. It's been quite a journey. And I look forward to sharing all this information with other people like this. It's great.
Yeah, awesome. We'll definitely send spirit, and we would love if you ever have time again in the future. We'd love to sit down with you again and go a little bit deeper on some of these topics and do another 2.5 hours, and that'd be awesome.
Let's do it. Yeah, this is fun.
Awesome. Chris, you happy?
I'm happy.
Michael, good. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Episode 32 in the can. Michael Jaco, thank you very much for this evening, and we'll call it there. Episode 32 in the can, Silly Goose Gang Podcast.
The Silly Goose Gang Podcast.